Listen now, we the talk around town. Alex threw the ball to Smokey for a touchdown. It's fourth down and you don't really want no more. We've been winning from the door. You should check the scoreboard. Check the scoreboard.
Welcome back to another episode of The Scoreboard. Today we got something interactive to do. We're going to play a little game that Smokey doesn't know of yet, but it's going to be a good one. So Smokey, first of all, how are you doing?
Man, I'm better than the Big Ten and the ACC. No, that Pac-12 actually. The ACC is still going at this time, but I don't know. I suppose it won't be long though.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's been a big controversy there. I can see it though, and I'm actually surprised it took him this long. Because if I was a player in college, there is nothing that's making me play at the moment. Like the academic side of things is impacted enough as it is already, and you're not getting anything. You're not getting paid. Like you're already taking a risk for the profit of others. Why take like this much of one now? I can definitely see why people want to sit out the season, especially, of course, juniors and seniors who are going to enter the draft, who don't have anything left to prove. I can totally see that. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get to see much of any collegiate sports this year.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm pretty sure the SEC will be the last holdout, though. But if the Big 12 and then the ACC fold, there's no way they're not going to stay in there. I think but maybe as long as one of those holds out with the SEC, I think we could get college football. But if everybody else folds, the SEC will too.
Yeah, gotta be a huge asterisk to it though when there's like 24 teams in total or something like that. Not gonna be a good season. But you might see some. You might see like fucking Arkansas in the playoff or something, and they can proudly put that on their locker room walls and stuff. But
if it comes down to it, and there's only two conferences playing, then you're probably just going to have, an SEC champion and an ACC or Big 12 or whoever stays in,
Yeah.
It may be more likely that we see the Big 12 hold out because they are actually mostly in a part of the country that doesn't have as much coronavirus problems as the rest of the country. And we all know that the SEC is based in the South, so we don't care anyway. We'll
yeah, exactly.
We'll play through the corona.
Definitely won't blame the players for not wanting to put up with that. The cards are already stacked against them in terms of college football. So more power to them.
Well, the one thing
in terms of pro football, I think, yeah.
Well, the one thing I'd be worried about is there's some players who won't get to play their final season that possibly could have been something, think of Joe Burrow last season. If they would have cut out his last season, he would have been a 6th round pick, instead of the first overall.
He would not made that type of money. That is definitely true. But I guess players, they're very eager to play, and maybe go to Canada, join the transfer to an SEC school. But I think most players will be happy with just not having that happen this year.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of the pros, we didn't really... a lot of people were drawing panic about half the league is going to opt out. And it wasn't going to happen, obviously. These guys will make way too much money.
No, yeah.
What do we get, 100... How many people in total opted out, the entire league?
I didn't look at the final number, but it wasn't much.
I think it was less than 100. And that's, from the 90-man rosters. So... if you look over the list, there's 5 names you recognize, honestly.
Yeah.
And the rest are people who they knew they were going to get cut, and they collect $150,000 and just take an early vacation. That's most of what this was. Let's be completely honest. Yeah, I got a couple Patriots who opted out, and it might be a huge global conspiracy that Bill Belichick has somehow orchestrated. We'll find out start of next year.
Total comes to 66 players.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. That is considering training camp rosters with 100 people being affiliated with the team. That is ludicrously small amounts of numbers. So I didn't expect it anyway. But it should be fine. So we have a game to play here, and I've kind of talked to you about this for like weeks, and we never got to do it because last times we had the positional rankings for the breakout candidates. By the way, if you haven't seen them, go check those out. But since those are finished, we finally get to play this. And this game is called Are They Retired or Not? And I think you can extrapolate what it's going to be about. Of course, you can't Google the answers here, but I'm going to name players, NFL players, current or former NFL players, and you have to tell me whether that player is still active or that player is retired. How about that?
Okay. I could see, like...
You think you can do that?
I think for the skill position guys, yeah, but I'm sure you could stump me on a lot of defensive guys and O-line guys and things like that.
It's gonna be good. All of these names on the list, or there's gonna be a lot of the names on the list where it's gonna be the moment of, wow, yeah, I remember that guy, but I didn't think of him, right? I've heard of him before. It's gonna be a lot of them. A couple surprises on this list, actually. Like when I was looking those up, I went about it by just thinking of players that I vaguely remembered, and I didn't know what was up. I was like, hey, whatever happened to that guy? And I looked it up and checked his history, and I compiled this list of like around 15 names, I think. And I also encourage the viewers at home, the listeners to the show, play along and let's see how many points you can score. Mm-hmm. But that's the whole rule set. And if you want to go for like extra points, if you think a player is still active, you can tell me what team or give whatever extra information you can just for for extra credit. But Are you ready to go?
Oh yeah.
All right, start off. First player, CJ Spiller.
CJ Spiller, wow. He is not. Well, I'm trying to think. I don't remember him signing to any team. Not even last season. Where did he go after the Broncos? All right, I'm gonna say retired.
You're correct. CJ Spiller is retired.
Okay.
Did last play with the Saints in 2018.
Yes, the Saints. Yes.
For a one-off. I got some of the easier ones at the start, so here's another one that might be easy. Terrell Suggs.
Terrell Suggs. He's not retired.
That is correct. He's still active. Currently a free agent, but he did play with the Chiefs last year.
Chiefs.
As more of a rotational or backup guy, but that's correct. He's not retired. Mike Iupati.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Not retired. No, yeah, actually, I'm gonna say he is retired now.
He's not retired yet.
I had it right at first.
I didn't know. I didn't know he was not retired. He obviously was with the Niners for a while. But that was a long time ago, like 5 years at this point, and
so
didn't really hear much about him. He's with the Seahawks now.
Really?
Yeah, and apparently he was there last year. I knew that he went to the Cardinals. He went from Niners to the Cardinals, and then I just didn't hear of him anymore. And now he's with the Seahawks, apparently.
Wow, I didn't realize that at all.
And, yeah, I didn't know either, but that's one. Here's another rather big name, Brandon Flowers.
Ooh, Brandon Flowers. I'm gonna say he is. Man, I wonder if you're trying to stump me here, because I know I heard about him recently enough to say he's still in the league, but I'm going to say he's retired because I think you're trying to play that game against me.
He is retired. Yeah, that is true. You're kind of seeing through the charade here. I have to mix it up a little bit. So right now you're three for four, right? You got three of them right. You got CJ Spiller, Terrell Suggs, and Brandon Flowers. So that's three. If you're keeping score, I'll try to keep score. But you got 3 points at the moment.
All right.
How about this one, Mercedes Lewis?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis. Yeah, he played for the Packers last season. I'm gonna say he's still in the league. I didn't hear about him leaving.
He is. Yeah. He kind of just disappeared from the radar after like one season where he was good with Jacksonville, and after that, you didn't hear much of him.
It was really
the Packers. He's still in the Packers.
Really, only one game that he was good with the Jaguars.
Yeah,
and that was
true, but enough to get his name out.
Oh yeah,
true. But he's still with the Packers, still active. How about Vernon Davis, another tight end?
Vernon Davis, is he still with Washington or not? Man, these are actually really good because these are guys that I haven't thought about because they're not really fantasy relevant these days. Vernon
I try
Davis,
to pick people that aren't fantasy relevant.
Did he retire this offseason? That's the question because I know he played last season. I'm going to say he's still in the league.
He actually retired.
Oh, man.
Vernon Davis is retired from the Washington football team, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I should have said the Washington
it was one of those...
football team and not the
exactly.
The dreaded R word.
Always. When you get the chance, always refer to him as the football team.
Yes.
As long as you still have the chance. So, yeah, that was kind of a trap one. How about this next one? Also a big name, actually. Jordy Nelson.
Jordy Nelson is retired. Because he didn't even play last season with the Raiders.
Oh yeah, that's true. You remember that? That's good. He probably was on the fantasy radar, so you probably kept a pretty good eye on that one.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Along with Vernon Davis, but I didn't realize he had retired.
He just retired. Yeah, yeah. Jordy Nelson is retired. That is true. Mm-hmm. This is a blast from the past, maybe. How about Manti Te'o?
Manti Te'o. If he's still in the league, I'm going to punch myself in the face. He's retired.
So here's where it gets a bit muddy, and this is going to be some of those. He is still an active player, however, he's a free agent, and he didn't play last year.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a team last year, most recently with the Saints, but he is still listed as an active player. I would give you like half a point for that, maybe, because he is kind of out of the league, but also not formally not in the league anymore.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Which is, I can see the sentiment, though. Like, how could he... Last time you heard of him was, like, in 2015 or something, when the Chargers were still in San Diego. It was the last time you heard that name.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I can see that. How about Cassius Marsh?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Cassius Marsh.
Cassius... Oh, I'm going to say retired.
He's still active. That surprised me a little bit too. And I remember he was with the Niners just like 2 or 3 years ago. But this is completely out of the blue. He is active and playing for the Jaguars, which I did not know. I had no idea about this at all.
Who is he playing with now?
Jacksonville. He's in Jacksonville.
Really?
Yeah. I had no idea. This one surprised me a lot. I didn't think he was still in the league.
He came back after retiring, right? Or
I guess.
Or after at least taking some years off. I mean, you do have a lot of guys who are free agents, technically, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I think
they come back, yeah.
Think of like a Joseph Randle who went to prison.
Yeah.
I mean, he technically never retired, but he hasn't played in years, you know.
The best example for that, I think, is... No, actually, I'm not going to mention it because he's on the list for later. But we'll get there. Okay, next one, though. Bishop Sankey.
Bishop Sankey. Man, the last I remember... Where did he go anywhere after Tennessee? I'm going to say retired.
So, this one is the most dubious one on the list, and I guess you should get the point for this. He is a free agent currently. Didn't play in the NFL since 2016. But he's been in the AAF, and he's most recently played in Canada. Yeah, so he's still actively playing football. Yeah. And
I forgot about him playing
currently considered an NFL free agent.
Yeah.
So, I guess you can get that point, though. He was in the NFL for a long time. Justin Blackman.
Justin Blackman. Where did he play last? Man, see, I think you're trying to stump me with that one, too. I'm going to say retired.
This one is one of the most interesting stories that I found for sure. So, he hasn't seen the field in, like, years, like 4 or 5 years when he played with the Jaguars. And he had some off-the-field issues too, but through some kind of weird situation, he is still under contract and on the Jacksonville Jaguars roster.
Really?
Whereas he hasn't played a game, hasn't practiced, hasn't suited up or participated in any team activity since 2015 or 16. But he's still technically on the Jaguars. He's still taking up a roster spot and a spot on the payroll to this day. Wow. Somehow, wow. I don't quite know the intricacies of that, but that's a interesting fact that gets tossed around sometimes. So
Yeah.
theoretically, he's not just a free agent; he's actually on an NFL team, but he's not going to play. Pac-Man Jones.
Pac-Man Jones. Now, I know he's not playing, but I'm wondering, has he officially retired? I'm going to say retired.
He is retired. That is correct. He's a big name though, and he was one of the fun guys to watch. Like, he's a very energetic player, an energetic corner. I always love watching him.
Oh yeah,
like one of the prototypical slot corners in the 21st century.
Oh yeah, and he was part of the Cincinnati Criminals. Yeah.
Yep, when Vontaze Burfict was there.
Yeah.
It was and like Reggie Nelson stuff. Yeah, it was a good time. But he was good though. He was a good player. And they went to the playoffs a while, like between 2011 and 16. They went to the playoffs, so they weren't terrible.
Yep.
All right, a couple more, like 5 more names to go off the list.
All right.
How about Matt Barkley?
Oh, Matt Barkley. Man, I want to say he turned up in either the AAF or the XFL, didn't he? I don't know that he's retired though. I'm gonna say still active.
He is still active, and in fact, he is on a roster. He's on the Buffalo Bills.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which I did not know at all. You just stuff happens. You just don't hear about it unless you're probably a fan of that team. You don't get those kinds of news. But
I may be wrong, but I was thinking I heard about him popping up in the XFL or the AAF.
Yeah, there was someone there, but I'm not sure if it was him.
Yeah, maybe not.
There was someone in the XFL. I forget who it was. Was it Christian Ponder?
Maybe so, yeah.
There was someone there, for sure. But we have to look that up because they started too. But I forget who it was. Matt Barkley right now is active with the Buffalo Bills.
All right.
Okay, next one. This one also blast from the past. Jonathan Joseph.
Jonathan Joseph. Oh my God, what team could he still be on? If it is, maybe the Cowboys. I'm gonna say, because if you put it on here, I'm gonna say they're still he's still active for some reason.
Because people would think he's retired, so you're thinking I'm going reverse, and I'm that means he's still active.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. He is still active, and he's on an active roster too. He's on the Tennessee Titans.
Oh wow!
Interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking he would be a perfect fit for the Cowboys at that age.
Yeah, that might be true. Last time we heard of him was when he was on Houston, like in 2015. Mm-hmm. Still somehow active and still on the Tennessee Titans, still playing. This one is maybe the most obscure name on the list, but maybe you have an idea. Dre Archer.
Ooh, Dre Archer. I'm gonna say because it hasn't been that long since I've actually saw him in a game. I'm gonna say man, are you trying to stump me? I'm gonna say he's still active.
He's retired. And get this, I felt the same way when I thought of him. I was like, yeah, he recently played. Yeah. It hasn't been that long, exactly. Right? He was retired in 2016. He's been out of the league forever. Yes. He came into Pittsburgh as a return specialist, played like 1 year. He's been retired for years. No activity. He's done with football.
Wow, it doesn't feel like that long.
It doesn't, but it has been that long. It's just really surprising, but there you go. 2 more names. This one, maybe one of the biggest names on the list, former first-round pick, Aldon Smith.
Ooh, Aldon Smith. I'm going to say... See, now I'm getting torn between is he just inactive or is he retired? I'm going to say he's retired.
So you would think that he would be retired or in any sort of rehab or mental facility or some kind of penitentiary, any facility like that. He is active and he is on the roster of the guess who, the Dallas Cowboys. And he signed there this offseason. Yeah, he signed there just a couple of months ago. Yeah,
but he didn't play last season though, did he?
No, he didn't. He didn't play for a while. He was with the Raiders last year. Remembered him? Like he caused trouble everywhere. Like you remember, like the time when he was on San Francisco, and it was like a weekly thing of, man, he shows up drunk to practice, but then he gets 3 sacks and he can stay. He calls in a fake bomb threat at an airport, and it's like but he's defensive rookie of the year. Okay, he can stay. And eventually they were fed up with him and he got cut. And then he was like in rehab or something. He was also an alcoholic for a couple of years or for a while. Then he signed up with the Raiders, which was of course wonderfully fitting. That's of course, that's just that kind of team. Nothing really came of it, and he got released again, and he's now with the Dallas Cowboys, just freshly signed, and they're gonna look to put him with DeMarcus Lawrence, and maybe he can pick it back up. But at this point, he was in the same draft class as J.J. Watt, so he's in the latter half of his career and kind of wasted it a bit because he was a phenomenal player, if you remember that. I mean, he came out, I think, 2011. He was a beast. He went 7th overall, one of the best pass rushers in the league with the first couple of years.
We talked about him on this show not too long ago, actually.
Yeah, did we?
Yeah, I think so.
Might have been. Yeah, quite possibly. But he's active, and now he's with the Cowboys, so we'll see what happens.
That's crazy.
And last name on the list, Austin Safirian Jenkins.
Austin Safirian Jenkins. I'm pretty sure I got this one right and the reason I'm going to get this one right is because when he was at the Patriots last season, I actually thought with Gronk being gone, they were still going to use a tight end, Tom Brady. And he retired on me before the season started.
You got it. Yeah, you know this one. This is a fantasy relevance, so you got this one. Yes. I kind of expected it.
Oh yeah.
Seems like a very premature retirement because it seems like it seems like he just got drafted, right? That just happened, and he came into the league, high expectations. But yeah, he's retired, and he also got off the field issues with, I think, the substances and charges and whatnot. So yeah, he is definitely out of the league, probably for good. So that was the list. If you want, you can go back and count how many points you scored. People at home listening, let us know how many points you scored. I think this is like a really interesting thing to look at sometimes because there's so many names that go through the league that you just forget so many of them. Like you forget all the names that you've heard over like 5 years ago. The rosters look completely different, and it's I like this kind of game. I think it's fun.
Oh yeah,
definitely an interesting one. But we have something for the fantasy heads out there too, which you are obviously the president of. The little known fact, the president of the fantasy heads organization worldwide, Smokey Ramirez in the house. So great honor, obviously, and it's fantasy season, which is obviously probably your favorite time of the year.
Yes, exactly. And let me just adjust.
And you have the rankings. So we're hopefully going to do this on every show now up until like fantasy rankings. It's been one of the better segments we did last year, and a lot of people very interested in obviously getting some advice and some solid advice too from a seriously professional fantasy football player. It's about time. Training camps have started. The first episode of Hard Knocks is out, which I have to watch, by the way, after we're getting done here. And what do you want to talk about today? Give us some insight. I need it. I'm drafting soon.
Well, I wanted to, first of all, let's get into some news really quick. Just a few headlines here. Of course, if you were planning on drafting Darius Geist this season, don't worry about it now. He has been arrested and has been cut from the Washington football team.
He's off the breakout list.
He is definitely off the breakout list at this time. And I've been trying to think of who I might replace him with. I don't know, maybe Keyshawn
would you
Vaughn,
consider
since,
maybe
since
would you consider Would you consider Jerick McKinnon? Because he's been out for like 3 years straight. Like, he was good once, but if he now came back and actually broke out for once, like didn't hurt his knee in week 1, would you consider that a re-breakout?
Yeah, I mean, technically, he never really broke out the first time, in my opinion.
Well, he had one. Yeah, like he was of course behind Adrian Peterson back in Minnesota. That's how long it's been.
And when Peterson was hurt, he was fighting with Matt Asiata for playing time.
Yeah, but he was a receiving back, and he did really well. I mean, he got paid a lot of money from San Francisco when Kyle Shanahan came in. That was 3 years ago. He probably taken how many regular season snaps did he take for San Francisco? Probably count them on one hand because he just got hurt all the time. That abysmal 2018 season when him and Jimmy got hurt in back-to-back games, and then the season was just over. Didn't play last season either, so just injury plagued. And every year it's the same thing. He's coming back. He's looking better than ever, but will he stay healthy?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what. Looking at that situation, who I would put back on my list that was on there last season is Tevin Coleman. I would put him back on the list because even looking at the Raheem Mostert thing and the little stunt he pulled, I think he actually pulled that stunt, or his agent did, because he may have been told at some point that he is not going to have the starting job once the season starts. And I think this may be Coleman. Coleman was injured a little bit at the end of last season, and maybe that's why we were seeing Raheem, basically have a breakout season pretty much. But I think we may see Coleman actually regain. I mean, we know Shanahan doesn't use workhorse running backs or anything, but for what it's worth, I think Coleman could get a lot of work there and actually break out this season.
It's tough to pick any running back in the Shanahan system as a true breakout candidate.
That's true.
It's tough to see him have a significantly better season than with Atlanta in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was in the feature backfield too, but he did good then.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, another candidate to go onto that breakout list would be Ronald Jones down in Tampa.
Oh yeah. Did you have him last year?
I mean, if you count maybe a 5-game span, yes, you could say that. But it was, I don't consider it a full breakout,
Well, I mean, did you have him on the list last year?
Oh, did I? That's a good question.
I don't know. You might have.
Yep, I may very well have, actually.
Not sure. But yeah, he's one of those candidates for sure.
Yeah, I'd have to
Though
look back
it's
at
got to be tough.
book.
It's got to be tough for Bruce Arians not to want to call a pass play every game, every time though. This year with the type of receivers that he has on this team.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, and if he doesn't do it, Keyshawn Vaughn is right behind him, who is a good pass catching running back, and we know Brady loves pass catching running backs.
Oh yeah.
So
screens for days.
There's another weird signing that happened this week, man. Lamar Miller is headed to New England. Now
Lamar Miller could have been a name on that list for the quiz, honestly.
Exactly. If he wouldn't have signed just 2 days ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact, if he wouldn't have signed yesterday, I would have said, yeah, he's retired. Because he barely played any last season. And, his production was pretty much dead by that point anyway.
So is he going to be like a third down back in New England, you think?
Man, I don't see where he fits in, to tell you the truth. He can catch passes, but they already have a pass-catching running back. And they still have Sony and Damian Harris, and Damian Harris hasn't gotten to play yet. Well, where's Lamar Miller going to fit in?
I'm not sure, but I guess you could never have too many versatile running backs, right?
Well, they still have Rex Burkhead also there. I don't know.
Really? He could have gone on the list. I would have said he's retired.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, okay. But I guess Belichick knows what he's doing. But that does put...
The amount of running backs. Jeez.
Yeah, that does put Sony Michel for breakout in jeopardy, because... who knows who's going to get the work there. But
Might have to
anyway,
split carries.
Yeah. I mean, it may be. It may be like, it's hard to draft running backs from New England because 1 week you could have Rex Burkhead have 3 touchdowns, and then the next week Rex Burkhead gets 1 carry the entire game. It's tough, but I try to stay away from New England running backs. Mm-hmm. But that's pretty much it for the news this week. I just want to get into my top 5 tips for fantasy this season.
All right. Let me get my pen real quick. All right.
Yeah, you're gonna need these.
Yes, I am ready. I'm ready.
Now these tips are usually based on people who are just learning fantasy football, because that's usually what I work with, is people who are just getting into fantasy and learning how it works, But all right, so the top 5 things you need to understand before you draft or play a season, which you can't do one without the other. Number 5, understand what position should break out in what year. Now, meaning, if you're looking at a quarterback and you think, I'm really high on this quarterback and he should break out this season, you're going to look for him to be year 2 to year 3, basically. We saw Patrick Mahomes break out in year 2. We saw Lamar Jackson break out in year 2. We saw Carson Wentz break out in year 2. So year 2 is the magic number. Very few quarterbacks that are going to be superstars do it in year 3, but it does happen from time to time. So if you're looking at a running back, if you want to find a superstar running back, you look for their rookie season for them to break out. And it does happen sometimes in year 2, but it's not very often. That a lot of times you got like 1-year wonders when that happens. If a running back's going to break out, you're looking for him to do it his rookie season. Wide receiver, the latter part of his rookie season into his second season. So if you're looking for a wide receiver breakout, you want to see him put up some production at the end of his rookie season, because that is a good indication that going into year 2, he should have a breakout, and as long as there's no drastic coordinator changes or anything like that. And tight end is the toughest to predict, and it usually happens year 3 and beyond. Now, there are some special cases that we see, like a George Kittle, who can do it in his second season, and Ingram did it in his rookie season somehow, but hasn't put up production since then. But on average, you want to look for tight ends to break out in their third season. Number 4.
That's a really good segment.
All right.
Can I comment on that real quick? Because I just noticed a couple of things. I really like how you put that into a one concise context. Because you always notice it, like this player breaks out then, and we knew that some position groups take longer than others. But I like that a lot as a tip, because it's very good for fantasy football. You can extrapolate some actual strategy from it, like pick up rookie receivers kind of going into your fantasy playoffs at the end of the season. They've been showing promise, and you had great examples of that last year with like AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, and Deebo Samuel, who all really showed up towards the latter half of the season. Tight end is the toughest position in football to transition from college to the NFL, where running back is the easiest. And I agree with everything you said. Just one question. Do you think that the lack of a preseason and the restricted training camps and off-season work, how much does it affect that? And should you probably just avoid something like rookie receivers this year because they're going to be delayed a little bit?
Well, I think they will delay a little bit, but considering they tend to not get fired up until the end of the season, I don't know. I mean, it may affect it by a few games. I mean, usually, I think of like DJ Moore is a good example. When he was beginning his breakout in 2018, it was, I want to say game 11 and beyond. So if you want to look at that, and he had an off season like we have this season, it may be 13-14. But I still think, most... you should start seeing, some improvement. Excuse me. At the end Man, I got choked up.
But
man.
drink some water.
Yeah, that's
gotta
what
stay
it is,
hydrated
man.
here. It's a lot of talking. It's a tough job on the vocal cords.
It is, man.
That's true for sure.
And if you can't tell, I have really weird vocal cords to begin with. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just look for it to be delayed by a few games. You know, I don't think it'll be, you know, extremely offset. I think we will still have some rookie wide receivers start to break out at the end of the season. But tip number 4. Don't be afraid to go after players a little sooner than ADP, which is average draft position. If you are really high on that player and you believe in them. Now, I'm not saying reach like more than one round ahead of where they're going, you know, and let's say you're really high on a guy that's going in round 4 on average. It doesn't mean you need to reach for him in round 1 or 2. But if you're drafting at the end of round 3 and this guy ends up going, you know, usually mid round 4, go ahead and take him if you really believe that guy is going to break out. Because
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've won seasons by just taking that chance, you know. And if you really believe in the guy, I can tell
the story of you mentioned him 2 years ago. I drafted George Kittle, and he was going like that was his first season as a starter. So he was like owned in like 40% of the leagues at the start, and I picked him in the 10th round because I just seen part of his rookie season, and it worked out. Definitely did.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes that's what you got to do. I've won entire seasons by doing that, you know, just by being able to. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I did it last season.
Yeah, right, you did.
Number 3, understand when a player is changing teams or coaches that their fantasy outlook could dramatically be different from the last season. If you want an example of this, look at Le'Veon Bell. The guy was great. He was a number 1 running back in fantasy with Pittsburgh. But he goes from a coach that knew how to use him with a great offensive line to a horrible offensive line and a horrible coach, in my opinion. And that's what can happen. You know, you can't just depend on a player changing team and keeping up their fantasy outlook.
That's a good point. I think like 2-3 years ago he went first overall in most leagues, and I picked him first overall in his last season with the Steelers too. Definitely a point. Do you think we're gonna see something like that also in the positive way, that maybe someone like Melvin Gordon this year, who kind of dropped in terms of draft stock over the last few years, goes to a team that looks better and actually is not going to have a better season?
I think that's a possibility for Brandon Cooks, as a matter of fact.
Right, yeah. Goes both ways.
And, yeah, I mean, it could be Hayden Hurst, which he never really broke out, which I predicted him to this year. But, you know, this could really improve his draft stock for sure. But, yeah, I mean, it definitely goes both ways, that's for sure. But, you know, you just be aware that when a guy is changing teams, you know, and it happens all the time, you know, you like Le'Veon Bell going in the first round. That means that the majority of the drafting public took him in the first round and got burned last season because he had a horrible season. But you got to be aware of it, you know. Tip number 2. Let me get a drink of this before I die.
Yeah, go ahead. Take a drink. Meanwhile, I will give my top 2 fantasy tips, because that's about how many I'm qualified to give. Number 1 is never draft Mark Ingram, and number 2 is you know, look at stats from last year. That's my two tips, and kind of like try to implement whatever football knowledge you have into your evaluation. That's all I've lived by over the last 4 or 5 years of playing fantasy, and it works. These
I
three
got it. I'm adding don't draft Mark Ingram right here.
Yeah, that was going to be your number one on the list all along, I suppose. But that was in New Orleans, though. Like, apparently that rule doesn't apply anymore now that he's in an option offense. But in New Orleans, that was always the rule.
I think it could apply again this season. You know, last season, no, but this season it could, man. They have J.K. Dobbins there. It could be possible. You know, rookies can break out. I think they will use him at the beginning of the season, but I think throughout the season they're going to transition over to J.K. Dobbins.
Maybe not. There's been years where I straight up left him off my board because it was just like, that is the one player you just do not touch when he was in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, I have players like that every season that I just refuse to draft because I don't believe in them. Jared Cook comes to mind. You know, yeah, he can have a good season or two here and there, but I'm not going to draft him because chances are he's not having a good season.
Exactly. That's an important instinctual skill that comes after a few years, I think.
Exactly. Number 2 is you do not win your season at the draft. You must work the waiver wire and trades to be successful. Now, there's a saying in fantasy, you can't win your season at the draft, but you can lose your season at the draft. You can draft utterly horrible and lose the entire season there. But if you draft extremely great, you are not going to win your season just off that draft unless you are in a league with horrible players who do not know what they're doing. If you are with any seasoned veterans of drafting, you have to work the waiver wire. It's just not going to work out. So you can't get comfortable with your team no matter who you draft. You have to work the waiver wire. I mean, guys are going to get injured, especially in a year like this. Who knows who's going to fall out from week to week with COVID?
Oh, no idea. No idea, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really good point. I also have funnily enough, like all the points you mentioned, I have a personal story to kind of accompany it on how it's been in my experience. My first ever year playing fantasy, I think it must have been 2015 season. I go first overall. I pick Adrian Peterson. He played 26 snaps that year. My first overall pick gets hurt, played 26 snaps. I still won the league somehow. I have no idea, but definitely true. You can't win at the draft. You can lose big at the draft, but you can make up for some of it too, because a lot of it's still up to kind of the football gods and how injuries go.
Exactly. I drafted Adrian Peterson that year too. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Number 1. Understand the cycles and trends. This is my biggest point to fantasy football right here. Don't overestimate a player's value. Now, let's see. I'm trying to think of the best way I can lay this out here.
As an example?
You have to. I'm sorry.
Kyler Murray is the example.
Yeah.
Don't pick him until the 12th round. That's what you're gonna do. Because people are gonna pick him round 5. You know it's gonna happen this year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's people who'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in understanding the cycles and trends is like I'm all in on Josh Allen this year because I see things lining up for him to have that Cam Newton season. And, of course, that could be wrong. I mean, this is a game of probability. Anybody could be wrong. But if you understand the trends and how things work in fantasy football and how things tend to go. Philip Lindsay, man. Philip Lindsay is a case study in negative regression. This guy coming to the league, he was not a pedigree player, but he excelled in preseason. He had a great rookie season with the Broncos. So
hometown hero.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone was drafting him last season. They thought this guy is at least a top second round pick, you know? And then he reverts back to being pretty much what he is. I mean, Philip Lindsay's a good player for an undrafted player, but he's not Josh Jackson, you know? He's not Nick Chubb. He's not first round draft quality, you know? And that's you have to look at a player for what they are, you know? And you have
Absolutely.
You also have to understand positive regression and negative regression, which is also called a rebound, you know? Positive regression is called a rebound. Because if you think about this, Patrick Mahomes had that wonderful second season, right? And I mean, just unprecedented season. So I told you last season that the guy's going to regress. It was on our bold predictions show, because after coming off of a season with 50 touchdowns, I'm sitting there telling you, like, he's going to score under 35 touchdowns because he's up for negative regression. I mean, that's just a cycle and a trend.
It's tough to it's tough to progress positively if you've had the historically best season of all time, though. I wouldn't exactly call it a regression because you had a little bit less stats. The point is true, obviously, but it's tough to call someone as having regressed after they win the MVP and then the Super Bowl the next season and still are the best player in the league.
Yeah. Well, and this year I can tell you that there's probably a regression coming for Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, I get it. I mean,
another one?
What do you mean another one? I'm sorry.
Well,
I said Patrick
Lamar.
Lamar Jackson.
You meant Lamar. Yes, that's true. Yeah, that is true.
I said Patrick Mahomes. But here's a player I can give you that has done both of them. Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had his MVP season. The next season, we knew that a negative regression was coming. So he had pretty much a down season. You know, they still made the playoffs. The Falcons did that season. But Matt Ryan had a horrible season that year as far as fantasy goes. And then after that season, you knew that a positive regression was coming. And somewhere he's going to settle on his career mean, you know, eventually. And he got his positive regression and, you know, basically went back to being one of the best options, you know, a mid-round quarterback option in the league, you know. But
I can also attest to this from personal experience once again. And I always call this like philosophy. I always tend to call it, you draft history over hype.
Yes.
So you pick the guy who you know performs and know has performed. And there's also once again a great example from my past. In 2016, I believe we were having like a 10 or 12 man league, and it was like 8th or 9th round, like it was mid to late rounds, and the guy going right before me drafted Dorial Green Beckham, if you remember him, after his one kind of breakout season, and like the very next pick I got Larry Fitzgerald, and I was gonna take Fitz anyway. Even if he doesn't pick Green Beckham, I was gonna take Fitz anyway, even though most people had Green Beckham over him that year, because I knew that Larry Fitzgerald has caught passes in the NFL the same way for 12 years at that time, and Dorial Green Beckham got famous because of like a Randy Moss catch late in the season, his rookie year, and everyone hyped him as the next Calvin Johnson.
And then he was out of the league the next season.
And he was out of the league. Exactly. Could have been on my list today. He's been retired for years.
Exactly. That must have been the 2015 season.
It might have been, yeah. Might have 2015 or 16, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I'm not sure, but yeah. I think 16, but I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, just understanding how the cycles and trends work, and regression, whether it be positive or negative, or progression for rookies, you know. That's part of the wide receiver breakouts, you know. You got to follow the progression. But, yep, that wraps it up for the 5 tips.
Absolutely. Great stuff. I think that's very important for a lot of fans. I definitely learned some stuff. I realized some stuff. And a lot of stuff basically just clicked for me, too. It was stuff that I kind of residually knew and had heard of, and obviously could provide examples of, but you put it into words really well. I think for a lot of maybe less experienced fantasy players, very important. You should write a book on that. How about that? The Fantasy Bible or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's already a thing, but something like that. You should definitely do that. So that was definitely some good tips. People should definitely stick to that and maybe bookmark this video and watch it again when you're preparing for your own drafts. And if you did enjoy, of course, if it helped you out, subscribe to the channel, because we're having fantasy segments every week now going into the draft, probably until week 1 until the very end because people are drafting the whole time. And maybe even updates throughout the season. I think that's definitely a good idea. Waiver updates. I think we did that last year, and I think it went over pretty well. So we should definitely do that. And subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy it for more expert advice and some more regular football talk also, which we're going to be continuing to do. Maybe next week we talked about this already. We might do like another like bold predictions or something going into the season.
Oh, yeah.
With the fantasy football segment. Definitely looking forward to that because those always end in bets and in potentially someone winning a couple of cans of Monster, which last season didn't happen because we tied just with everything. We came out at exactly 0, which was boring, but at least shows that we're very competitive and it's a good matchup. So I'm definitely looking forward to more of that. But for today, you got anything left, Smokey?
I think that's it, man. I'm gonna choke off the air now.
Yeah, exactly. Get some cough syrup and relax. So, everybody, thank you for watching the video. Drop a like on it if you did enjoy it or it helped you out at all. Subscribe to this channel at Trash Talk Sports and check out Smokey's main channel, The Trash Talkers, too. Interesting stuff going down there. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you might like that also. And we're going to see you in the next week. Until that, we'll see you in the next one.
Deuces.